welcome back to the Knitting Expat podcast channel. Welcome. And we are here today to talk about something really exciting, something I've been working on for the past few weeks, and that is my 2021 sock pattern club, I should say. And the theme is around the world in 8 socks, so kind of a play on the whole around the world in 80 days, but I thought it'd be quite a fun name for it. So if the name hadn't given it away, the theme of the club is travel. And I remember posting about this a few weeks ago now, asking if you guys would be interested in another sock club for this year. The overwhelming response was yes, definitely would be interested. And a lot of people suggested sort of like travel related theme for the different variations, but basically travel as like the theme for the sock club. And I settled on, I already had the idea for it being travel themed, but then I settled on the whole idea of it being around the world in 8 socks. I was trying to decide how many socks I wanted in the club. I didn't want it to be like a full year, because for one thing I knew I wasn't going to have time to get it started before March, essentially is when it's going to kick off, but I knew I wouldn't have the time to start it at the beginning of 2021. So and also 12 can be quite a bit of an overwhelming number, and then but then I didn't want it to be less than 5 because that felt like it might not be enough. So I was trying to find a good balance. And in the past I've done sock clubs of varying lengths. I've done the whole year, I've done half a year, I've done 4, I've done 7 or something like that. Anyway, I settled on 8. 8 felt like a good number. Not sure exactly why, but 8 felt good. I did have 10 originally, but then again, 10 just felt like too much. And another aspect of it was also cost, because I wanted to keep the cost of the club as affordable for as many people for as long as possible, sort of thing. So I was really considering that as part of this whole thing. So it was just a delicate balance of all the different things. Sorry, there's something in my eye. But it was just this delicate balance that I was trying to strike between making sure that I had enough content to like fit the theme properly, that I wanted to include certain places, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just cutting things out for the sake of it to try and keep costs down, but I also didn't want to add too much for the sake of it either. So like I said, 8 ended up being where I landed, and I'm really happy with how it's all coming together. So you'll have seen in the title card and on the thumbnail, I have a little watercolor element to my club this year. So I've done a series of watercolor paintings, and this is kind of like there we go, colors adjusted, like my watercolor world map, rainbow colors of course. Yeah, really happy with how this one turned out. I took a couple of goes to get it right. Please no one have a go at me about the fact that my proportions and positioning of certain countries are a bit off. I know Australia is not meant to be there, it's meant to be more out here, but I ran out of paper and I didn't want to redo it again. And yeah, I freehand drew the world map, so please be kind. I didn't, it's not exact, it's not perfect, but it's just my interpretation. So like I said, I freehand drew the world map off of a picture on my computer, so it's not, I mean, I know the proportions are really not right, but the gist is there, you get the gist. So yeah, that was kind of like my cover art for the whole thing, which was really fun. And I have actually done a corresponding watercolor piece for each of the cities that are going to be included. So while I said there's 8 socks, and they're going to be inspired by 8 different cities as we travel around the world. So a little bit about them. I guess I'll tell you what the cities are, because I thought that'd be quite fun. Also, the colors that I've chosen to paint each of these little maps, I guess, is also inspired by the colorways that are going to be part of the yarns, sorry, the colorways of the yarns that I'm going to be using for each of the patterns. So I've been in touch with 8 different dyers, and I think I mentioned this on my Instagram, but I don't know if I mentioned it on my podcast at all, but I made an effort this time. And I'm pretty sure I talked about this on my podcast recently, but I know that as someone who has a platform with an audience, no matter how big or small it is, that I have a certain level of responsibility and influence to the community as a whole. And one way that I can use that for good is with the dyers that I choose to work with. And so this time I made the conscious decision to work with dyers who identify as BIPOC, who are which equates to black, indigenous and otherwise people of colour. So, and I technically fall within that bracket. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Iranian by background. Like, I was born in the UK, but my parents are Iranian. So so yeah, anyway, so I'm working with 8 amazing dyers, none of whom I believe I've worked with in the past, which is really exciting. So so yeah, so these are the different cities that are going to be included, and we're starting with London, which is very fitting because it's where I was born and raised. So London is the first one. Oop. Then next up we have Paris, which is another city that's really close to my heart. Then we have Rome. All of these places have really special meaning to me. Either I've lived there or have really special memories of trips to these places. Dubai, which again, if you know me at all, this is where I learnt to knit. Hong Kong. We've got Tokyo. Vancouver, which I also lived in Vancouver for a while. And finally, New York, where I also lived for a while. So all of the colours that I've used in these maps, other than the blue for the water, which is the same for all of them, I've done the same blue, but all of the colours on the maps themselves are what's the word, representative, I guess, or inspired by the colours that are going to be in the skeins of yarns that I'm using as well, so they kind of all tie in together, which is really exciting. Anyway, I'll come back to the watercolours a little bit later, but I wanted to give you a bit more information about the club. So I've told you about the cities and the inspiration and the idea behind it all, and yeah. Anyway, so like I said, 8 patterns in the club, each representing one of the cities on our journey around the world. The patterns in the club are going to be aimed at all skill levels. The idea is that the earlier patterns are quote unquote easier or a little bit simpler, and then as you progress they become more complex, and the idea is that as you go through the club patterns you'll start gaining confidence in your skills, and you'll learn new things as you progress, especially if you're a newer sock knitter. If you're a more experienced sock knitter, then this will just be fun. You might not necessarily learn anything new if you're experienced. It just depends how much experience you have with different knitting techniques. So there'll be everything in here from knit purl patterns to cables to twisted stitches to some other sort of special stitch combinations all throughout. So yeah, I'm really excited about the patterns in this one. All of them have been written out in full, like so each pattern comes with 7 different sizes, as pretty much all of my sock patterns do these days. So you get 7 different sizes. The patterning has been written out individually for each size, line by line. There's charts for each size individually. A lot of the time I've had to tweak the charts for each size to make the patterns work at the different stitch counts. So there's 7 different charts, 7 different sets of written instructions, toe up and cuff down sock knitting instructions. So it's like really detailed patterns. On top of that, you get there's going to be during the pre-order time, actually throughout the whole club, like as part of the whole bundle, there's also going to be a copy of my vanilla sock pattern included as well. So if you are very new to socks, you've never knit a sock before but you want to take part, then that vanilla sock pattern is going to be there when you buy the pattern when you buy the club at the very beginning. So if you wanted to practice and knit one of those up, you can. It's also there as like a base. It's like my base sock recipe that I use for my vanilla socks. So that's going to be in there as well. That's just a freebie that I've thrown in with the club. If you already have the pattern, then great, but there's no like additional discounts because you already have it. It's just it's just an extra thing that I've put in there. But in addition to that, you're going to have a separate PDF in the ebook for the club thing for how I do my modified heel flap adjustment. There's going to be a separate little document on how to add a contrasting yarn for your cuffs, heels and toes if you've never done that before. I do get questions sometimes from people about how to do that. It is fairly easy, but sometimes people would like to have instructions on how to do stuff like that, so I've written up instructions for that as well as, and this is something I've never done before, I have written out how to do my German short row heel line by line for every size option that is offered in the whole club. So whilst there are 7 sizes offered in each pattern, some of the patterns have your standard sock numbers. So overall, because sometimes because the way I write my patterns, it's based on half of your stitch count for a circumference of a sock. So if a sock is 64 stitches, for example, the pattern is written for 32 stitches, so for half, and you just repeat it on the second half of the sock. So a lot of the patterns will have that even number, so it'll be 32 for a 64 stitch sock, or 36 for a 72 stitch sock, for example. However, some of the patterns need an odd number for it to work. So some might be, instead of a 64 stitch sock, it'll be 66 stitches, and so it'll be 33 on the half pattern, if that makes sense at all. Anyway, all to say, there's actually 14 different sets of written out instructions for the heels. So there again, for anyone who wants specific line by line instructions on how to do the German short row heel to follow with the pattern, that will also be included in this ebook. All of the individual patterns will come with what I call my generic German short row heel instructions, where you can use it with any sort of stitch count number. But there again, I know especially people who are newer to sock knitting or newer to this heel like to have more detailed out heel instructions. That's why I've decided to include that as well. So these are all additional things that you get, as well as the patterns in the club. Then, okay, so exclusivity, the patterns for the club. I've got my laptop here next to me so I don't forget any of the important information. And just so you know, all this information will be written out in the description box below, so you can always go and check that. There's also going to be a Ravelry thread where you can, for chatter and posting finished objects and stuff in my Ravelry group, and the instruction, all of this stuff will be there as well. There'll be a link to that below. I'm also selling the club not only on Ravelry but also on Payhip, and links to both of those will be below as well. And there's going to be a hashtag for Instagram as well, which I will get to a little bit later as I'm going through this information. But if you wanted to follow along with what I'm saying, it's all written out below this video. So, and this will also all be included on the ebook pattern page on Ravelry and Payhip. Okay, so the patterns for the club are going to be exclusive to the club for all of 2021, and because there's going to be 8 patterns, the first one's going to be released on March 1st, so a little under a month away, and then on the 1st of every month going forward. I mean, that's the aim, is going to be the 1st of every month. If there's a slight delay here or there, I will let you know on Instagram about that, but it'll be around the 1st of each month. The next pattern will be released. And then starting from January 2022, all of the patterns will be available for individual purchase if you didn't want to buy the club. So there is that option in the future as well. So the first pattern will be launched in March, the last one will be released in October. The vanilla sock pattern and the other materials I mentioned, like the heel instructions, contrasting heel cuffs and toes, and the modified heel flap adjustment, all of that will be available as soon as you pre-order. You can get that straight away. And I said there'll be like an informal knit along going on for the whole year. I'm doing a fair few sort of like along type things this year, so I'm trying to keep it fairly casual and relaxed and not too strict. All you have to do is knit a pair of socks from the club, enter a photo in the Ravelry thread or on Instagram, because I know Ravelry is not accessible for everyone right now, and I will draw a few prizes from both places at the end of the year. So the hashtag is #AroundTheWorldIn8Socks, and I'll have that come up on the screen here for you, and it's also below. And yeah, so that's the general stuff. Alright, so this is Editing Mina jumping in, because I'm going through editing this video and I realised the whole section when I was running through the numbers for the pricing of the club got a little bit muddled up, and I can't fix it with editing. It was just looking messy and confusing and it wasn't clear, so I'm just going to refilm that little clip now and pop it into the relevant segment in this next bit coming up. So if it's a little bit disjointed, apologies. I just want to make sure the information is really clear and straightforward for you to understand exactly what I'm on about. So the pricing structure, now this might get a little bit confusing because I'm going to be throwing out a lot of numbers. So like I said, it's all written out in detail below on the Ravelry page and on Payhip, so if you want to sit down and like really read it and look at it carefully, you can. I'm going to go over it fairly quickly. I don't want this to take forever. All of the sock patterns, once released for individual sale, will be priced at £8 each, along with my usual pay what works pricing method, which gives you options for 20, 40 or 60% off that £8 price tag. This is a system I've been using for the last over 2 years now, I think, or around 2 years, and it's been working really well for me. I'm really enjoying how this is working. It's allowing me to make my patterns more accessible to more people at a variety of price points, and then it's up to you as an individual to decide what you can financially afford to pay. And actually, on balance, it works out really well, and I'm really happy with this method. So I'm pursuing it now, and this is why there's going to be a lot of numbers being thrown around at this point. So the way I'm breaking down the costing in the club prices is cost per pattern. So know that the full price for the pattern is £8 for each sock, and then with a 20% discount, that would be £6.40. With 40% discount, it would be £4.80, and with a 60% discount, it would be £3.20. Bear in mind, VAT, if you're in a country that adds VAT onto digital products, that is on top of these prices. That is not something that I don't get that money. It goes directly to whichever country it is that collects this VAT. Ravelry and PayHip automatically add that at checkout, so that's not something I control at all. It's not money that comes to me, so it's paid back into those countries. It's not extra money that I earn or anything. I just want to make that clear, because it always comes up as an issue, which I understand. Like, if you're not aware of it, it can be a little bit confusing. Okay, so the full value of the club, if you take each pattern priced at full price, is actually £64. So with the different discount options, if you were to purchase each pattern separately, the club would be £51 and a bit for 20% off, £38 with 40% off, and £25.60 with 60% off. Okay, so that's if you were to buy every pattern individually. At the cheapest way you could get it, with 60% off each pattern, it would still be £25.60. For early bird pricing, which is everything up from now up until the first pattern is released on the 1st of March 2021, the full cost of the club is going to be £20 for everything, and then you can get it at 20% off for £16. So that breaks down to being at the full price £2.50 per pattern, or at the slightly discounted price £2 per pattern. Bear in mind, this also includes all the extras as well on top of that. Those aren't costed into this. Then once the first pattern is released up to when the last pattern is released on the 1st of October 2021, the full cost of the pattern is going to go up to £25 for all 8 designs. And then with the 20% off code, it'll go down to £20. And that works out to £3.13 per pattern at the full price, and then £2.50 per pattern at the discounted price. And then after the last pattern is released on the 1st of October 2021, the cost of the entire club is going to go up to £30, and that's going to be the price it stays at going forward. This club will it is unlikely that this club will be discounted again in the future, like go on sale or anything. Typically my clubs don't go on sale, or my pattern ebook things don't go on sale, because they're already so heavily discounted from compared to buying the patterns individually. So it's £30 for all 8 plus the extras, and then there'll still be a 20% off coupon, which will bring the price down to £24 for the whole club. So that's a cost per pattern of £3.75 at the full price and £3 at the discounted price, which is still significantly cheaper than buying the patterns separately, even at the discounted price. So the full price of £30 after the clubs, all the patterns have been released, is still less than 50% of buying all the patterns individually at full price. So it's a really good deal, a really good way to get a lot of patterns together, and yeah, like I said, I'm trying to keep it all really affordable, and plus you get all those other extras as well, which are not like costed into the patterns. And yeah, so if you have any questions regarding that, feel free to either send me a message or an email, or leave me a comment below this video. I'll be happy to try and clear things up for you if you have any questions. But like I said, it is all written out in the description box. It's written out on the Ravelry ebook page and on PayHip, where you go to purchase the club. So you can like read it all if the numbers are a little bit hard to keep straight in your head. I know sometimes when someone's rattling off numbers, it can be a bit hard to keep it all going, you know, all straight in your head. Then, like I mentioned before, I've chosen to work with some amazing dyers, and I wanted to let you know who they are if you wanted to go ahead and check them out ahead of time. Now, I believe, and I'll need to confirm with all of them, but I believe they will all have the yarn that I'm using for the patterns available for sale in advance of when the club pattern releases. So for the first month for London, I'm working with Fruitful Fusion, who is Ishrat, and she's amazing. She actually used to live in London. Sorry, Perry came upstairs and interrupted my filming. Okay, so like I was saying, I made an effort to actually pick dyers where they had a connection with the city that they were providing the yarn for. So for example, Ishrat of Fruitful Fusion lives in the UK and used to actually live in London. So that was our connection there, and she has dyed some beautiful yarn, which, like I said, it was really funny because I painted these after discussing colorways and colors with the different dyers, but before I saw any of the yarns. So it was amazing how accurate the colors matched up. So this is the color inspiration for London. And then I'll have all the links to the websites of the different dyers that I'm going to be working with in the description box below, and on all the other places like I've mentioned 100,000 times already. So please check them out if you're in the market for more yarn. But also feel free to use stash. Like, I'm never one to tell you have to use the same yarn that I do, but I also know people do like to do that. So options are always a good thing. Anyway, so the second city is Paris, and again, pretty amazed by how well these matched up. So the second dyer is Trey Liz, and Liz is awesome. She has a multi-ethnic background, and part of her background is French. While she lives in Greece, she has that connection with France, and yes, that was our connection there. And like I said, I have been not only have I been focusing on BIPOC dyers, I've also been focusing on smaller BIPOC dyers. So I know there are definitely a few out there who are really well known and very popular, and they do amazing work as well, some of which I've worked with before, others I have not had the pleasure to work with yet. But I really not only wanted to focus on BIPOC dyers, but also wanted to focus on bringing attention to smaller dyers who are maybe newer or haven't had as much attention, or people don't know about them as much. A lot of these dyers I hadn't heard of before until I reached out for your recommendations of who you think I should work with, and I found some amazing people through this, more than I could have chosen to work with on this particular project. And I have a list of people that I want to contact for future projects when they come up. So yeah, I also want to share the word, as it were. So next up we have Rome, and our dyer for Rome is Birch Hollow Fibres, and this is the sort of colours that we discussed for that. Then for Dubai, there was no one else I could go to, and if you've been a long time viewer, you'll know who this is. My dear friend Josie, who lives in Dubai. She is a yarn dyer. She dyes sporadically. Mail to and from Dubai is a little bit patchy, so she is going to be having pre-orders for the yarn that she's dyed for the club. And again, very sort of, hers is a self-striping one, so there's a little hint for you there. It's the only striping colorway for the club, but yeah, she's going to have pre-orders available a few weeks prior to the club launching, the pattern launching, and I'll let you guys all know about that when the time comes. And yeah, I'm so excited. Like, there was no one else I could go to dye for Dubai other than my dear friend, who is one of the reasons why I am even where I am right now. She I found my knit group in Dubai a few months into learning to knit on my own, and they took me in. They were an amazing group of ladies, and like I just can't say anymore, to be quite honest. Josie has been a really good friend over the years. Even after we left Dubai, we've been in touch. She came and visited us in New York, and she came and visited us here in London, or in the UK. We're not in London, in the UK, and it's just been amazing. It's been a really great friendship, and yeah, I'm so happy that she offered to dye the yarn for Dubai. Then her shop is closed at the moment, but I will put a link to it anyway, because eventually at some point she will open it back up. So then we have Hong Kong, and this is being dyed by Eva of Seismic Yarns, and she has links back through her heritage to China, and so it seemed relevant. And then for Tokyo, we have Big Little Yarn Co, who is Mel, who is Japanese by background, but she's actually just moved back to Japan, which is amazing, a little while ago. And so she's going to be dyeing the colours for Tokyo. I almost said Japan. Tokyo. Again, please be kind. I freehand drew these city maps, and like I said, my map drawing skills are not perfect. And then we had, the next city is Vancouver, and I had Stephanie of Verse Yarns dyed the colourway for Vancouver, and it's this beautiful sort of like tealy blue colour. It's a little bit close to the blue that I've used for the water, but it's okay. I've actually adjusted the colours a little bit post in editing, so that they look a little bit more, they're better contrast between the water and the land. But Vancouver is a very special place in my heart. And then finally, I had Lindsay of Five Borough Yarns dye the New York colourway, and this are the colours inspired by the yarn that she's going to be sending me. Love them all so much, and I really want to thank all the lovely dyers for agreeing to work with me on this project. And I've had so much fun with it so far, and the yarns are slowly starting to show up, and yeah, I'm just really excited. The first 2 patterns have actually been knit up and are almost ready to go. I need to photograph them and get the patterns finalized, but yeah. So that's all the information about the club. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and wanted to get your thoughts on about whether it's something you would be interested in. Is I was thinking of turning these paintings into like a card set, if that's like a greeting card set. So I'm wondering, would you guys be more interested in A6 sized greeting cards or A5 sized like note cards? So then they don't, it's not like a greeting card that opens up, it's just like a large postcard essentially. So A5 is a little bit smaller than this, it's like this big sort of thing, or A6, which is like half that size. Let me know. And I was thinking about offering them in sets of 10, so you've got the 8 different cities, and then there would be 2 copies of the world map one included in each set. Let me know if that's some, oh geez, sorry, I shook the camera. Let me know if that is something that you would be interested in. I'm going to post more about it on Instagram in my stories, where I'll also be able to share more about pricing for that sort of stuff. And if I do offer it, I think I'm going to offer it as a pre-order. That way I can order the right number of cards for however many people would like a card set and send them out, etc. Kind of like what I did with the book, but with cards, and it would be a much quicker turnaround time for that. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Would you be interested in that? Would you be more interested in it as like an actual greeting card type cards, or as a note card? So like just a flat card with the picture on one side. So you could treat it as a print, you could frame it, or hang it on a, like stick it on a wall or something, or you could send it as a note card with an envelope. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, whether you'd like it with or without envelopes as well. If you want the larger size, would you prefer them with or without envelopes? In the past, when I've done note cards, I've sent them with envelopes, but without envelopes would mean it would be cheaper and probably reduce the weight for shipping as well. So anyway, lots of ideas. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will be talking more about the note cards, greeting card aspect of it on my Instagram once this whole thing is launched, and I'll probably run a few polls on there as well, just to get more of an input on your guys' thoughts about it and which options you would prefer, so then I can provide options for you when you are purchasing. Maybe I'll provide both options for pre-orders. Who knows? Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. I hope to see you guys again soon, and like I said, links to everything are below this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.